When we think of Samson, we usually see a comic book hero, a man of impossible explosive strength who appears completely invincible as he tears through the ranks of his enemies. But Judges chapter 15 reveals a different picture. Samson's physical power is undeniable, yet his story is defined by a deep and growing isolation. At this point in the narrative, the Philistine occupation of Israel has become the status quo. The tragedy isn't just the enemy's oppression, it is the spiritual apathy that has settled over the people of God. This apathy turns into active betrayal. 3,000 men of Judah, Samson's own kin, mobilize a small army. They aren't looking for a fight with the Philistines. They are looking to arrest their own savior. They tell Samson, "Do you not know the Philistines are rulers over us?" It is a moment of profound cowardice. They have become so afraid of their masters that they would rather remain in chains than risk the upheaval of being rescued. Samson's resulting solitude isn't an accident of history. His abandonment by his own people mirrors the path Jesus would take, rejected by the very ones he came to deliver, facing his mission entirely alone. Samson chooses not to fight his brothers. He stands still and allows the men of Judah to bind his wrists with new ropes, quietly permitting them to hand him over to the enemy. This is the essence of typology. It is how physical events in the Old Testament function as a vocabulary for the life of Jesus, where a historical moment of binding serves as a precursor to a greater spiritual reality. The visual of Samson, bound and surrendered by his own tribe, points directly to Jesus. Both men were tied up by their own religious and ethnic leaders and handed over to a hostile pagan empire. In both accounts, the motivation was the same. The community wanted to preserve their fragile peace. They calculated that it was safer to sacrifice the deliverer than to challenge the authorities. By entering their greatest trials completely rejected by their communities, both Samson and Christ show that the weight of deliverance is a burden the hero must carry without help. When the Philistines see Samson bound, they shout in triumph. But the Spirit of God rushes upon him, and the ropes burst off his arms as if they were burnt thread. Using nothing but the fresh jawbone of a donkey, Samson single-handedly cuts through 1,000 soldiers. It is a scene of raw, solitary violence. This physical battle at Lehi serves as a shadow of Christ's spiritual victory. While Samson fought an army of men, Jesus, in his final hours, stood alone against the powers of sin and death. There were no supporting legions for either figure. They each had to absorb the full, concentrated pressure of the enemy's hostility without a single follower standing by them. These moments illustrate that the power of God often becomes most visible when every human resource and every scrap of communal support has been stripped away. But the victory of the jawbone is only half the story. The high of the battle is immediately met with a devastating reminder of what it means to be human. The adrenaline of the fight vanishes, and Samson collapses. He is miles from any source of water, dying of a thirst so severe it threatens to finish what the Philistines could not. Here is the paradox. The man who just killed 1,000 soldiers is now helpless against his own biology. His strength, however great, is not self-sustaining. He cries out to God, and a spring of water erupts from a hollow place in the ground. Samson drinks. His spirit is revived, and he names the water En-Hakkore, the spring of the collar. This connects us back to the cross. Jesus, after securing a spiritual victory that would change the world, also voiced his physical limit, crying out, "I thirst." It is easy to focus on the jawbone, the moments of strength and public success, but the spring at En-Hakkore reminds us that even our greatest triumphs are hollow if we are not connected to the source of life. The final takeaway isn't found in the power of the hero, but in his dependency. We survive not by our own might, but by the constant, life-giving provision that only comes when we call out to God.